I think part of it too is people can feel if you're passionate about something, right? Like it comes through in your work. So if you genuinely are like, I love this idea, this is amazing. Ooh, how about this? How about that? And you're really putting a lot into it, that comes out the other side. People see that and people get into it as well. Oh, but if you're literally being like, okay, what's the next big thing? How can I monetize this? Let me just throw something out into the world and try and make as much money as quickly as possible. People can feel that too. So if if at all possible, try and ride the passion as far as possible. I get that it's tough. Sometimes you do need to make the monetization part of it, but if you can push through the passion part of it, the monetization follows a lot easier than if you're going straight to being like, how am I turning this into something that's going to support me full time? It's tough to do that if you don't first lead with, you know, what you actually want to put out into the world. It's very different if someone that does work for hire, if they're bringing you in to execute their vision. But if you're trying to do your own thing, make sure that you still are driven by your desire to see this idea explode.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's oh, yeah, you have to constantly check in with yourself, your creative team to
Mhm.
make sure that that is part of it too. Like Sarah and I do have these conversations, like going, like, yeah, is this still fun? Like, are we, like, are we enjoying doing
Mhm.
these? And usually after the end of the episode when we log off, we're like, oh, that was cool. That we had some really interesting uh things come from that we hadn't thought about, right?
Yeah, well, that's what's fun about the live ones too, right? Because literally, we don't talk about them off camera so that they do remain fresh and spontaneous, right? Like, if we were sitting and be like, "Okay, so in this episode, we wanna make sure this, and this," you lose something, right? Because a lot of why this works is because it is the in the moment, like, realizations and ahas and, like, something jumps out at you, which if you're rehearsed and planned, you don't get. So we do our best to keep it as, in front of the camera as possible, so what you get is genuinely how we are.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, and I also do this like I've had another show called My Sketchy Goodness, which I did for a few
Mhm,
years, and that's kind of where I discovered that I really enjoy the live aspect of it. That's why
mhm.
initially when we were doing this, I'm like, well, I really would like to do this live. We just figured at some point though with the door that it's going to be really hard for me to maybe I don't actually know that for
We're
sure,
gonna find
but it may
out.
be really yeah we're going to find out. It's going to be kind of hard for me to like focus on some of the things where I'm going to need a little bit more reference. So these actually what we're doing with these Twitch episodes is we're kind of playing around with it just to see if I can do a little bit more detailed. And I think
Mhm.
I can get for sure get to a pretty far point
Yeah,
structurally with it. I think.
absolutely, and again, that's what we're learning live as well is, how much of it can we actually do down to the very specifics live on camera versus having to take it away, and so far it's worked, but as Keith mentioned, we're digging down further into, like, finishing things and the details, and so it's gonna be interesting to see how that comes across in this format.
Yeah. Yeah, I again, it's just this is all like discovery, right? We
Mhm,
don't know, maybe we're only going to do this for like one season and then we'll decide, okay, it was fun, but we really don't have anything else to say. Or we may decide that, hey, this was a real challenge and it wasn't, like it didn't come out the way we thought it would, but it was still really, really
mhm.
fun to try. And it was also like a great learning experience. And let's see what we can do with like a longer one. Like maybe
Mhm.
that's how we approach it, or maybe it'll be a continuation of what we've been doing because it was so much fun. We don't know. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of the point of this. We're not really sure what we want to do.
Yeah, every episode we just start rolling and see where we go and see how far we get and see what we do, and it's never boring. So, yeah, we've come a long way with this already.
Yeah,
So what
yeah,
is
for
okay,
sure.
I feel like, okay, what is happening in our underwater world? I feel like we haven't talked a lot about our underwater world that you've been drawing during our whole conversation. It looks really cool. So what are you seeing here? Because 'Cause I'm seeing stuff for sure, but I'd love to hear kind of what you We're
What are you
invisible.
seeing? Because I wanna know. I know what I'm
Okay.
doing. What are you thinking is
Okay.
happening?
So, um, our guy in the foreground here, it looks like he's got some kind of like a claw thing that he's going to use to fight our tentacled beast there, and he's got his little his helmet on. That is his light or his breathing, a little bit of both. Looks like somebody in the background's being kind of grabbed right out of the water. So they're right in the middle of the fight. Our other friend looks like they're riding some kind of a shrimp or anglerfish or something. Like, it almost looks like maybe they've got a bit of a light on them, with their bag that's got their supplies in it and their weapon. And again, the same helmet. And then we've got reinforcements coming in from the background, to try and tackle this guy. I do like that it's got these almost like little suction cup mouth type of things on it. Like, it looks like it's maybe going to shoot something out of it, like it's got poison or something coming for them as they're trying to defend their kingdom. That's what I see.
Yeah, well, you just gave me the idea for the angler thing because I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right, it could be a light."
Yeah, a little
I
light
didn't
hanging off the front. That's what. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I can do that." That's a great idea. I was just one of those things where, I'm glad you'd mentioned that, and also I hadn't thought about, like, the poison or something coming out of the
Hmm.
whatever these things are, so, like, maybe I do have, like, a little bit of, like, a like, looks like there's, like, a gas or something
Yeah, 'cause it
emanating
just
from
looks
it
like
as
it
it
like that's its defense, right? When they get too close, it's got that. I love the idea of the anglerfish because again, it's got that light, which is a really cool way of having that neat light source. That's a practical element. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and yeah, so that's it. You described it kind of the way I saw it. Of course, you've been watching it all along, so for you, you kind of see it a little bit more clearly. I'd be
mhm.
curious to know if somebody else were to start looking at this right away, if they would be like, "I have no idea what I'm looking at," or "Oh, that's good." And this time, I'm a little bit more like because I'm working in black and like with black lines and some like tones,
Mhm.
half tones, in regards to like giving it a gray tone effect. Um, like one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create like a little bit more of like a depth in the foreground, right? So
Mhm.
my lines are still like if I were to do this, we're not going to probably do this again, but if I were to finish this and I'll probably if I do, I'll record it. I would like make it a little bit more, like those lines a little bit more clean. Um, just because like like they're very rough at the moment. So, there's things about this that I do like that I would try to keep, but then I would also try to make sure like, the forms are properly given like the proper line texture and stuff like that. So, um I would do that. I would probably consider like coloring this so that, again, if you can tell what it is in this drawing, great, that's awesome. But then also like, once you put the color to it, you'll be able to separate, foreground, midground, background a little bit better. You'd also be able to get movement and like there may be like energy coming out from the lights
Yes.
and all that kind of stuff, right? So there would be things about this that I would be able to enhance just by um, like working on it a little bit more. But I do like like that you in describing it back to me, you're giving me more ideas as to like what it could be, right? So little details that I wouldn't have thought of on my own. Now you're like, oh, there's a light there. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, but okay, that
That's
works.
what I meant to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We had a comment, "Sea monkeys strike back."
yeah, exactly. Who's that? Who's
From
commenting?
Paul.
Who's that?
From Paul.
Oh, from Paul. Hey, Paul. Exactly. Yeah. So it could be like that's another thing. We don't know. Um, maybe this isn't part of the door. Who knows? Maybe this is like some kind of like a little here. I always found it kind of captivating when you had Superman go into like the little I can't remember the name of the world that he had shrunk down. It was kryptonite
Mm.
essentially. It shrunk down to the little city, uh, Krypton city, and basically he would go in there every once in a while. Same thing. The Hulk. There was another. a small universe of a world where you can see these characters, or you can maybe see little specks of them or something. But
This all
um,
takes place in a fish tank in the apartment of the door.
yeah, really, a little side quest, right? It could be like a little side quest at the door that
A little bit of extra magic that comes into the apartment. There's a fish tank that inside that castle, in the fish tank, this is what's going on.
that's where the door is. The door is in the castle, and so that would be an interesting too. Like you could, if you wanted to stick with the rules, you can say, okay, that person if you've been watching the door, we know that our character Sam goes, opens the door. We don't know where they go. Maybe they go here. Maybe
This
this
is
is
where they
something.
end up.
Yeah,
They have to
they're
fight
lost
the
here.
underwater beast once they walk through the door to nothingness. I mean, we haven't established what happens other than darkness and nothing. There's always ways, and I think that's what's really interesting with storytelling is if back to the improv conversation, is if you let yourself just be okay with it being a little bit weird because you're gonna weave it around, you can end up in some interesting places. Not all of them work, but you don't miss out on things that will work because you've already closed off your mind being like, nope, that doesn't make sense. It's like, let's just play around with it. You never know. But I do think that this has turned into a really neat little scene, all from that one sort of simple sentence. Um, this has become its own little universe.
Yeah, exactly. And I do like drawing this kind of it's very organic, so it's not so little tricks that if you're um wanting to do something live where you are talking to people, having doing things that are a little bit more organic, maybe a bit easier. At least they are for me. I mean, maybe not for maybe it's easier for somebody to draw a cityscape. But for me, doing stuff like this, which is a little bit more organic and I don't have to like think about reference too much. I can just uh make it up in my head a little bit more. Right. I think that's always it's a little easier for me to make something that looks a little bit more finished versus if I had to like really figure out the structure of the room that they're in. That's one of the reasons why I'm not sure with the door if I will be able to continue to talk because I will have to be working, thinking about like how to
Yeah.
structure like a table and like the TV and all that stuff, right? So it does take a bit more of a, at least for me, it takes a little bit more of a thought process in regards to um, that kind of stuff. But this kind of stuff, I find it's a little bit easier for me to kind of figure it out, especially since it's also in an environment that's like lots of bubbles, so you can kind of fake stuff, right?
And it's also completely made up, right? Like, we're not trying to be like something real. We're not trying to look like, "Was this look like a real squid? Is this anatomically correct?" Everything here is sort of a version of inspired by, in the line of, so that also is a bit more freeing because it doesn't have to look exactly like something that people have reference of.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I do look at like, I'm like, "Okay, what does it look like?" If somebody swims in the water, you'd wanna
Mhm.
kinda get some of that stuff, to make it at least feel like it, but, I mean, also at the same time, you could argue that, if this brush kinda gives the effect of bubbles a little bit.
It does.
So,
Yeah.
you could say that, if you're seeing it in a way where, your imagination's filling in some of that stuff, then I don't necessarily have to, like, actually draw all the bubbles, right?
No, for sure, and it gives that sort of deep water with the dark and the bubbly kind of look to it. It gives that feeling of being underwater.
Yeah, exactly. So, it just works. I do like these halftones. They just
Yeah.
work really well, for a lot of the things I do. And you just have to learn how to use your tools in ways that help you. I try not I've long ago, if anybody ever wanted to know, like, like, what brushes do you recommend using? At the end of the day, I just kind of I stick with like one or two of the same brushes I've been using since the beginning. Um, this one that I'm working with, I think it's from it's yeah, True Grit. Um, and then the other brush, the Chisla, which is it's also True Grit. I mean, I've been using these for at least 5 years, right? And I just like that they give me certain kinds of effects that are somewhat versatile, so that
Mhm.
I can do multiple things with them and play around with like environments and but without having to like search for another like brush to use to do that. And then I've recently started really working with the halftones a little bit more, and I found one that I really like that I have the ability to like let's see, I can forward to mm, there we go. Um So with this one here, I can go into texture and you see it's at 150 scale. I can bring it down to like 100, try to work in like increments of 25. So I'll bring it into 100 and then you can lay
Ooh,
another layer on top of it to give it a little bit more of like a darker, like, so now these are smaller, right? So I can do that if I wanted to, like just create, and then do it again if I want to.
gives it a bit more of a foreboding kind of deep water feel with that added on top.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Anyway,
Well, that was we covered lots of territory, lots of ground, and in doing so, worked on this beautiful finished image that's a lot closer to, the final story that we started last week. So that was very fun.
yeah, yeah. Let me just almost finished here, and then
Yeah.
we'll
Oh, I like that.
wrap it up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, again, just if you're going to be using one of your tools, just keep a you know kind of document what you're going to be doing. Like I only work in increments of 25, so I know that it's 150 or 100 or whatever it is, so that I can go back and replicate things. Right?
Well, that's one of the most important things is remembering what you did so that you can do it again.
Exactly. Exactly. So there we go. I think that's pretty good. Um, Yeah. And then, as I said, if I were to develop this further, I may go back into it and um, make it a little bit more, you know, the lines a little bit more definitive and not so much cleaner, but more clear.